So good evening, everyone. Good evening.
Good evening.
So nice to see everybody. And so I wonder how you thought about last Wednesday when we were with Inoue Roshi, and whether you have some thoughts about that visit with him or some questions. We are still in the same chapter, chapter 6, advice for the practice of Zen. And it's a big, important chapter. So maybe you've got some thoughts about last Wednesday or questions.
The thing that struck out to me, that's not the expression. Anyway, stood out for me, was where he said when talking about Shobogenzo, what is written in Shobogenzo is just what Dōgen Zenji wrote. There is no Shobogenzo other than this life. And then my notes go on. The very big step is the big misstep that Shobogenzo and our life are separate. And Shobogenzo is something you manifest as your reality. It's not Dōgen's Shobogenzo.
Right.
So that was just totally, at least in that language, new territory for me.
Well, we have been saying, or I have been saying, that we don't study Shobogenzo, we do Shobogenzo, we do Dōgen. And so that is certainly what Kanda Roshi is teaching. We do it, we don't study it, as though it was something separate from us at all. So, so that was Mickey's question about why should we read Shobogenzo if we are told not to worry about the sutras. So, but we do, because Dōgen Zenji said those, and we do it. We simply do the realization of the teaching of Zazen.
That was the highlight of the time, the question period for me too. And Karen, you must have really good shorthand, because you got down about three times as much as I did. And afterwards I would say, oh, that was so great. Now, what did you say? But yeah, I was hoping to just introduce a bit of levity into the discussion. And I was hoping to see him show his heart, and he did. So so I felt good about that.
Well, he would never take that question as levity, Mickey. Of course.
Well, as soon as I asked the question, I know that he and both he and the translator and you, Amazon, suddenly cracked a smile. So I knew that something was coming.
Well, I mean, it was a Mickey question also, a very Mickey kind. So, so that's probably why we smiled. But it's also a question that does get asked when someone says, or a teacher says, we don't worry about the sutras, and it's not what we're about. And then we'll say, well, why do we chant the sutras at ceremony? Or why do we even read Shobogenzo? Mm-hmm. So it's a very, very typical question that comes. And since it hadn't been asked of Kanda Roshi, it was a good one, because he spent his life on Shobogenzo.
Exactly.
So, yeah. Yeah, anything else from last week?
I'm just always amazed how you ask a short question and then the translator seems to talk for 5 minutes with him and and gets back to you in one or two words. So I would have liked to know what they were saying in Japanese.
Yeah, I think he's just clarifying something. I don't think there's anything mysterious or secret going on between them at all. It's on the recording, so you can always go back and find some other translator to translate for you. But he's just clarifying the question in some way. So But typically, English takes longer to express than Japanese does. So, you know, if you see the same material written down in English and Japanese, the Japanese is about half a paragraph, and English will be a big long paragraph in comparison. So he's qualifying, or, you know, saying something that is, you know, that Kanda Roshi needed to be able to understand to answer the question. So, yeah.
I thought Cynthia's question that was very practically minded about the computer problem. I really liked that, the grounding it in a real, true moment of your life.
I ended up having to do that, Karen, because I realized too late that I had worded my question too broadly. And I was like, well, I thought it was really clear because it was clear in my mind. But then when I got this answer, I was kind of sitting there stunned, like, this isn't at all what I was asking. And I was glad the translator picked up on that and kind of asked me to explain a little more. And yeah, I ended up having to use some really basic example, like even just something being broken that's not right, instead of just perceiving everything as just fine the way it is. What do we do when it's not? Anyway, I loved what he finally came up with, saying that we take that, we bring the clarity from the cushion into our daily life without the add-on thoughts.
Right. So if one of your programmers gets something wrong, you just say, oh, that number is off. Could you put the number correctly, please? It's that simple, without thinking that something's wrong. Or
right, just clearly see the thing, and just take action to do what needs to be done with it. Yeah. Rather than adding on all of these other thoughts about getting angry or frustrated or blaming someone or all these things that are really inefficient, like you said.
Yeah. So in many ways, such approach really clears up our relationships a good deal, because many of our relations are about getting annoyed at something, or these misunderstandings that occur when somebody does something one way, but you meant it an entirely different way. And so to try and work that out, you know, it can ruin relationships, actually. So that straightforwardness is to be really clear is great. It's good. I thought that was a really good lesson that he gave us in that. So I agree with Karen. That was a really good, very basic, very excellent question.
He was he avoided being theoretical. He stayed pretty straightforward to immediate being, rather than getting into any kind of philosophical discussion. And I thought he met each person very, very well where they were. For example, with Cynthia's question, after the initial go around, it could easily have gone to someone else and it could have passed by. But he said to Cynthia, he felt it wasn't complete. Right. And he gave Cynthia the opportunity to continue, and something substantial emerged from that. And he did that with the others as well.
Right. It was very, very nice. I mean, that's what he'd really been hoping to have, is back and forth, to really see that somebody understood or got what, you know, their question was aiming to. So
yeah, there was that opportunity for a real mondo rather than the previous, and that was good.
Yeah. And not only did I get my original question actually answered and clarified, but I learned something very important about communication and how it's important to try to be really precise and specific, because what we have in our head when we're forming a question, if that question is not specific enough, someone else could interpret it completely differently. So it kind of helps me to kind of hone in on my communication skills, or how I word things to communicate things more precisely.
Yeah, it's nice. Yeah. And of course, we're working through a translator, and that gets translated, and how that goes is another layer. So it can be difficult.
I was wishing so much I could understand Japanese.
Yeah. But, you know, even if we can't understand his language, we can feel his intention, and we can feel his concern and, you know, wish to really clarify something. And even, as I say, without knowing the words, you get a real sense about him and being with him, and his clarity and a true love of the Dharma. So, yeah. Anybody else? Anything? Well, we are still on chapter 6. And because we hadn't had the chance to talk about it so much, I don't think we did the week before, but I thought that we would take it up again this week because maybe questions came up then again after having been with Inoue Roshi, Kondo Roshi. But he makes it incredibly clear. I don't know how more simple it could be to get what he's getting at in terms of how we think, and that thinking is another of the senses, and that it is just another function. And the function of thinking is one feature of the natural activity. And so this is what we were concerned about in this particular chapter. How do we put the mind in order and allow that thinking to be one of the activities that we know: eye, ears, nose, tongue, body, mind.
Edo-san,
Mm-hmm.
I think you touched on a question I had or have, and it's how to stop that cycle. In the last couple pages of this chapter, I mean, there are statements like refrain from fulfilling desires that arise from a way of thinking, cease all discrimination about thoughts that arise, completely throw away the condition that is fabricated after your thoughts. And I often feel that, I mean, in some ways, I'm like a dog chasing its tail. And on occasion, I catch it and end up with a mouthful of hair. So it's like, how do you break? I mean, he like you said, he's very straightforward. It's like, this is what you do. And yet I'm stuck. I'm stuck in this kind of cycle of watching myself do the very thing he's saying, no, you need to stop doing this.
Well, I don't think he means to stop thinking.
No.
Yeah,
it's the cycle. It's that, yeah, that's the best I can characterize it.
Well, so it's very simple in that sense when he talks about, when he says, of course we think, but when we start to put words together, we create a formation.
Mm-hmm.
We create ideas and formations. And that's not a problem either. We simply have to know when we are doing that versus when we are simply there without or just in being, so that we are not in a state of perception and formation.
Are you saying slow the, I'm thinking Zazen and slowing the process down to the point where I don't know how to put it in words.
If we have the opportunity to see without naming anything,
Mm-hmm.
really recognize that the eyes see, and there's nobody there doing that. It's just what the function of eyes do. But that must be truly realized, not just an idea about that. You have to sit
Yes.
and really realize that. If you can do that, you can do that with thinking. Then thinking will simply be another function.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And it's easier to do with either eyes or ears. Those are the two easiest. And he mostly uses eyes. When he goes like this and he goes like this, when you look
Mm-hmm.
here, you simply see what's over there and you don't see what's back here. You don't even think about what's back there. You see here. And then you look over here and you simply see what's over there without thinking about it at all. And so that must be truly realized, not just imagined.
Okay. I think I understand where you're going. Yeah.
If you can do that with your eyes, you will do that with thinking. You will understand that you can be there and thoughts can run forever like a record and they mean nothing unless you need to think about something.
Uh-huh. Okay.
I mean, if you go into the kitchen to cook, you have to think about what's going to go into the pie that you're going to make.
Mm-hmm.
So you think, oh, I need the apples and I need the sugar and I need this and the flour, etc. So you think about those things, but you don't make any big issue of it. You just kind of do it.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I mean, I know you already do this about some things, Bob. So, and to think that you are stuck is a wrong way to think.
Okay.
Do not think that you are stuck. It's not correct in the Dharma. The Dharma is right there in front of you and totally accessible in every single moment. So to say you are stuck is to make yourself blind in the Dharma, and you're not.
Mm-hmm.
So
Okay.
it's just a wrong way of thinking. You are not stuck. Nobody is stuck.
Edo-san, would it be similar to say, if you just go in thinking about how to make the pie, when you are grasping each of the ingredients, you're seeing the ingredients fully. And so you're not thinking about what you're seeing, you're just seeing them.
Correct.
And so when I hear you describe that, I think, well, there are all those other, when I'm holding the apple, I'm just feeling the apple as I prepare to peel it. I'm not thinking about how I'm holding it. Well, I might be to cut it better, but it's all.
Your natural intelligence holds the knife correctly. It just does. You don't even need to think about any of it because it is already natural action. And that is the straightforward intelligence of life, that we already know how to do that. If it's something you don't know how to do, well, you go to somebody and you say, could you teach me how to hold this knife? And the person will show you how to hold the knife and you say, oh, I got it, thanks. I mean, it's really that simple. So, so this is quite right. You've got the sugar and the butter and so forth on the counter. And when it's time for the butter, you simply reach for the butter and you slice it up and you mix it with the flour to get the topping. And you do that without thinking. You already do that. When you are making soup, you are a soup Nazi. And you make this gorgeous soup every time, no matter what you do. Nobody in any of this Sangha can make soup like you make soup. And you just do it. I think you don't even think about it. You just do it. So to understand that you are already doing it in many kinds of ways,
Mm-hmm.
accept that and realize that you have realized.
Okay.
But do not say you are stuck. That's incorrect thinking.
Okay.
You will stay stuck forever because that's your opinion of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not correct. You are not stuck.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
I mean, any of these ideas that we hold about ourselves are incorrect. Now, I am not saying that we egotistically go around thinking that we are so wonderful and we know everything. That's not correct either, because that's another opinion about oneself. But the idea that we are inferior, or we are incapable, or we whatever, they're incorrect in the Dharma. It is not correct thinking. And this is an important place that we must stand in order to be open to realizing. Every single person in the whole world is capable of realization. So we must be kind of hold a purity about ourselves in the Dharma, so that we are always open to the moment in which the mind will just, whoa, always allow that we are constantly at home in the Dharma. We can never not be at home. And that home is your spiritual perfection. So we must put aside any idea that we are any less than the Buddha's child. So to me, that's a really important thing. Notice when we are feeling inferior and acknowledge it, and then say that's not correct. Or maybe we feel stupid about something, or any emotion that we are feeling that is disturbing. Look at it and understand that that is not correct about ourselves. So. And we've all got a bunch of those. You know, it isn't, we've all got ideas about inferiority and incapability and something, whatever it is. We've all got them. But the important thing is to notice it and recognize that that is not what a child of the Buddha must say about oneself. If you say, I am stuck, then you are stuck. And that's not true.
I brought that into reality.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Made it real.
Yeah. And it's just not true, Bob. You are wide open, and acknowledge that you're already doing it.
Thank you, Edo-san.
Yes, of course.
Can the stuckness can seem as if it's the repetitive thought pattern that I am. I mean, like when I hear Bob say that, what I imagine is Bob's thought this before. I mean, I could use any example for myself. I've thought this over and over and over again. And so the stuckness is that repetitive belief. Yes.
It's a pattern.
Of course.
Yeah.
Right. But once again, it is not true. You can ask, is it true? It's not true. I mean, you have to ask rock bottom honesty. Is that true? Is that the truth of yourself? No, it is not. It absolutely is not.
What was going through my mind was when I first volunteered in hospice, how fearful I was of going into a dying person's room. And I thought, I can't do this. I can't do this. This isn't the thing I can do. I can't do this. And I really believed it. I mean, I really believed that I couldn't do it. And it took someone else telling me, no, you could, like giving me the pep talk. Basically, I needed the pep talk. And then after that, it got a little easier each time. And I believed it less and less. But I did need someone to intervene. I mean, maybe I didn't, but in that case, I did need an intervention of sorts.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that could be the case. So this is Bob's intervention. But the thing is that when we hold any thought like that, we should also ask ourselves, is that true? Is that absolutely true? And you cannot say yes, it's just not true. So so that question must be asked, you know, is that who I am? Is that how I am? Is that true about me? And we are not addressing the ego, we are addressing Buddha nature. And it's from Buddha nature that we answer that question. Would your Buddha nature say, Bob, you're stuck? No, not at all. So we must answer the question that from the standpoint of the absolute truth of Buddha nature of what we are. That is how we answer the question about ourselves, not whether somebody else thinks we're pretty or dumb or whatever. One from the point of Buddha nature is how we answer. So from the standpoint of Buddha nature, of course, you walk straight into that room of the hospice because your ego is absent. It's not there to be disturbed. I mean, this is what we must come to. And so whatever it is we are doing, we check ourselves and understand whether we are balanced in our, whether the ego is the one that is presenting the problem or whether we are standing within our understanding of being Buddha nature. And it's called practice. You know, we don't just do this once and then we're, you know, we can ski home. This is called practice, and we practice this on the cushion, sitting in Buddha nature, sitting as Buddha nature, and we get up from the cushion and we carry that forward. So we have the opportunity for that to become natural to us, so that the baggage that we've been holding, the baggage of the ego, drops off as we go. It just falls off, and we don't need to carry it. And at the age of everybody in this circle tonight, we are all way beyond needing ego. We don't need it. So, you know, like Cynthia, you just tell that programmer, you left out a 0. Could you please put that 0 in? That's all. I mean, that extra 0 could be fatal, of course.
Well, I'm the one who has to fix these things. So that's the heck of it.
Yeah, but you just go straight forward to it without whatever. Yeah. So the function of thinking is one feature of the natural activity of the senses. Just one more of the senses. That's the essence of the chapter. I mean, mm-hmm. It's what it's about, of really clearing this question up. But the whole of Gakudō Yōjinshū presses in on this very subject to allow ourselves to begin to go on without the concept of me. Allow ourselves to realize the senses are functioning and the notion of me is unnecessary.
I was noticing when I had a question for Kondo Roshi and how I made a problem out of awareness. And I mean, this is where the thinking, because we can think and it's a natural function, but then we trick ourselves.
Yeah.
Because he says that right, you know, right after that. But after thoughts start to function, we're in a situation whereby the mind is tricked by the mind itself. And so that's kind of, I mean, if I'm seeing, if there is seeing, to think that I need to add awareness to that is absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah.
Because that is I mean, so we can get stuck in our words, you know, or we turn it into a thing.
Yeah.
So.
Yes, and I think that awareness, and he just said, no, do I need to be aware? He said, no.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, I mean, that awareness, it can be heightened self-consciousness.
Right.
That I am being aware now, and I am washing the dishes very carefully now, and I must be practicing Zen because I'm aware that I'm doing this. So that becomes, you know, a very problematic then, and that is very difficult to discard, because that is another habitual kind of over wrapping around the mind.
Yeah, it's unnecessarily trying to control.
Yeah, yeah.
It's another action of the ego, trying to protect itself and trying to control the situation, not trusting in the function of seeing itself.
Right.
So.
Right. And seeing is, you know, we can't say it's more wonderful or beautiful or anything like that, because that adds something else to it that is not appropriate either. I think Katagiri Roshi says that if you go outside and you look at the mountain and you say, oh, that's so beautiful, he says, already that's too much. So once again, he is pointing out that we just see, and just that, excuse me that word, but we see. So, and of course it's beautiful. Of course it's stunning and thrilling, but we don't have to think it or say so. It's realized in us.
Edo-san, can you comment then on the modern effort to prompt mindfulness in a secular way through specific exercises, if you will? For example, there's one that gets bandied about quite a lot, which is a Thich Nhat Hanh. Everybody gets a tangerine and slowly eats their tangerine and really experiences the tangerine. You know where I'm going with this. So can you comment on that?
Okay, so one of the really good uses of the mindfulness movement, it's used in the juvenile detention issue in the state of Washington. It's a protocol. And Jikyo used it when she was working at the detention center in Chehalis or Centralia, whichever one. She was doing her, I think she actually was employed by them after she did her internship there. So the really important usefulness of that is to teach young people impulsivity and how to not be impulsive. Because when they could mindfully see that they were doing something, they could learn to restrain themselves from impulsivity. And it's extremely useful for that, and it really does work. So, when we come to the question, we're all going to eat a tangerine together. Well, must I comment? It's a little bit overdone, I think. It's sort of like a group, I don't know what to call it. I don't want to say anything bad about it because it is that practice by that tradition. And so it is not what we would do. But the usefulness of mindfulness is in impulsivity training. And it's very, very effective for something like that. Or for people who, alcoholics or smoking, any habit that we have to really try to work with, or addiction, it's excellent for addiction, because impulsively one would pick up a drink and drink. And one must be really, really mindful then to understand what is going on within them. And so it's very useful. But
is it fair to say impulsivity also could be reactivity? So my own reactivity in any situation, regardless of sort of, I mean, I certainly have reactivity at certain times that have a repetitive quality that would be similar to lack of impulse control.
Yeah, well, but I think that practicing shikantaza is enough. If you start to develop this heightened mindfulness, then you're going to have to overcome that in your mind. The thing to do is to simply be recognize when you are acting in that way, to do something impulsively. I mean, we all have some of that, but to remind yourself that, oh, this is an impulsive action, I don't need to do that, or you do it and then you acknowledge that you did it, and the acknowledging that you did it is in itself practice, so that gradually you don't do that again. You just don't. But my feeling about mindfulness is that it's psychologically based, and it is creates this overriding formation of how you think. That is what we are doing in the opposite.
Thank you for commenting on that. And Allison, thank you for the emphasis on this, what I wrote down as focused awareness, this over-focused awareness, because it really did make me think of times I've been led through those kinds of exercises and how unnatural it really seemed to me in many ways. So thank you.
Yeah, it's sort of like it's this super mind that starts to function that you just don't want to get to. It's not what we are after anyway in this teaching of Dōgen Zenji. And I had a student who came here once who was determined to think about every breath that he was ever taking. And he wanted breath training. And I kept saying, no, you don't want to do that. Breathing is a function, a natural function. If you start to control your breathing to the extent that this particular person wanted to, you will never be able to be without thinking about breathing. If you train your mind so tightly, and breathing is something we don't think about. It is one of the great things, like your heart. If you had to think about your heart beating all the time, it's that sort of thing. Then if you didn't think about it, your heart would stop. And so we allow these natural actions to take place. I mean, if you recognize that your breath, your heart, Your body functions are all doing just fine. You don't have to sit and think, okay, stomach, now I want you to chew up on that food. Now go through the alimentary canal. And I want you to go through, you don't have to do any of that. We don't have to do anything like that. It's all totally natural, taken care of. And so, so is thinking, and so are all the other senses. They're just natural. I mean, imagine if we had to think about our digestion and okay, liver, I want you to sort this out now. And kidney and gallbladder, get to work there.
Well, Kondo Roshi said, in response to your question, Allison, imagine if you felt you needed to direct your eyes all the time. I love that.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah, and that would be awful. Oh my goodness. And then your ears and totally awful. So we are given this, each one of us is a particular existence. And we are particular at the same time, we are all connected as we know. But we are particular and we have a particular existence. And so if you can allow yourself to say, yes, I am this existence and I just exist here, that's enough. So we don't have to direct anything in the body or anything. We will do what we have to do. You know, we're still going to wash the dishes and we're going to take a shower and we're going to do everything natural. But this existence is moving about its activity at the function of Buddha nature. It's the, you know, it's our impetus. So we don't have to do anything. We don't have to direct it. It already is that a true existence. And particular, because there's no other one of you. Each snowflake is different. Incomprehensible that is. On a day when it snows, to look out and know that every single snowflake is different, particular, has its own particular existence, and then comes together in a snowball. And it's amazing. What an amazing situation we have. So the very last sentence in this chapter, just those last few sentences, it is entirely, so if you want to know your true nature, you should at once completely throw away the condition that is fabricated afterwards by your thoughts. When you do that, what remains there is just the pure self. Then, for the first time, you will discover the fact that you are formed by the Dharma itself, or the way itself, which comes into existence without knowing. So we don't have to intellectualize our being. We be. So it's a profound chapter, and has incredible content and teaching in it. And so we can hear Gien Roshi's spirit in Kondo Roshi. So, and then now that we hear Kondo Roshi's teaching, when we are reading this, we don't know if it's Gien Roshi or Kondo Roshi. Which they would be just fine with, either one of them. Well, I don't want to overdo it or say too much tonight. We can say too much. So if nobody has any other questions or thoughts about any of this, we'll let it go. So next time we will take up chapter 7. It's a short chapter also. The need for Zen training in Buddhist practice and enlightenment. Page 159 to 165. Yeah, so beings are numberless, I vow to save them. Delusions are inexhaustible, I vow to end them. Dharma gates are boundless, I vow to enter them. Buddha's way is unsurpassed, I vow to become it. Yeah, thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Edo-san.
Thank you very much,
Thank
Edo-san.
you.
Night, everyone.
Good night, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.